Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Drag Illustrated's The Racing Business. We have a great episode for you again today. Thank you for joining us again. Before we get to the episode, want to go ahead and do some plugs. Of course, remember Drag Illustrated, the magazine, the website, all the different email blasts and all that stuff. Definitely follow everything Drag Illustrated. Keep this thing going. Of course, Racers Club, you got to look good. So go to racers.club. For the old folks, it's not racers.club.com. It's just racers.club. Get all your stuff. Also follow it on all the socials. And then look, we got to take care of ourselves, right? So I'll do what I do every episode. I'll say some words. You guys do what you want to do with them. Physical, mammogram, colonoscopy, endoscopy, blood pressure test, diabetes test, PSA, sleep test. We got to stay healthy as an industry, right? So do all those things or whatever makes sense for you, because we got to stay healthy. Yep. All right. So let's get to business. I'm a little bit nervous doing this intro because one of my bosses here from Drag Illustrated, we got Mike Carpenter, right? So want to make sure that I'm doing a good job. But listen, there's going to be a great episode to hear one, who is Mike Carpenter, but also a lot of the business behind Drag Illustrated from another voice. We hear it a lot from Wes. So here we go. Let's get to business with Mike Carpenter.
What's up, man? Brother? How's it going?
I'm doing good. Doing good, man. How are you?
Good. I'm honored to be on the racing business, man. I've been watching this deal grow, and you've done a hell of a job with it. So it's really cool to have multiple voices at Drag Illustrated. Like you said, everyone thinks of Wes, and of course, how could you not? And you couldn't ask for a better voice for the business, but there are a lot of other perspectives and voices behind the scenes that have emerged. And we've got myself and JT on the Wes Buck Show every week. Nate has done a great job on PDRA Live, which he does before every PDRA race. We got obviously the racing business with yourself, and then we've got a few more things in the pipeline. So really cool to see this kind of I don't know, post-print environment, as you would say, growing as it relates to Drag Illustrated.
Yeah. So that's all the things happening on the podcasting side. Tell us, both on the Drag Illustrated side, the event side, actually, I guess the lists of every Racers Club, all those things, but also in the life of Mike Carpenter, like what's all this stuff happening right now?
Man, just a lot of stuff. Obviously, like I said, we've got post print. I don't want to. That sounds worse than it is, but there's no secret that print is not a dying medium, but something that has become much more niche and something that doesn't. It's not the only way to reach a mass audience anymore. We all know that. So I think that at Drag Illustrated, especially in the racing industry, we've done, in my opinion, as good of a job as anyone at evolving and introducing new platforms and new products to complement the print product. We're very proud of the print magazine and always will be, and devote most of our resources to that, most of our staff to it. And as Wes always says, I'm going to steal his line, it's our flagship product. But alongside that, we've grown to these podcasts, live shows. We do conferences, the 30 under 30 deal, and then most notably our events, World Series of Pro Mod being the primary one. And then we were also heavily involved in the Pro Superstar Shootout back in February of this year. And that side of the business is unlimited right now. It really feels like that's where the most potential exists, and we're looking to expand on that and do really as many events as we can probably do with our small staff. That's really been the challenge as we grow. We have grown as far as a staff, but we're still the same, core dozen people that kind of dabble in all of this stuff. We all have our specialties, or the things that we focus on more than one thing more than another. But as things have grown, we find ourselves with a lot on our plate. So that really is probably the biggest challenge facing Drag Illustrated, is really just manpower and resources to do all the things that are really presented to us and that we have the opportunity to do. Wes and I have talked about that for a long time. We're fortunate that we've never had to necessarily go out and sell ourselves or advertise or really go out and knock on doors and seek business. Business is always coming to us, it seems like, which is just an amazing position to be in. And I can remember when we first started this deal and I was coming out of college, that was really my main concern. I had kind of grown up around my dad, obviously drag races, but also has an auto repair, a Napa Auto Care Repair Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. And just seeing, dealing with the public and seeing the advertising efforts that he had to do to continue to generate new business, it kind of set me up to think that that's how things had to be. But with Drag Illustrated and everything we've been involved in, it's kind of been just opportunity after opportunity after opportunity that's come to us. And it's more of a way of figuring out how to actually take advantage of all the opportunities. So we've been really fortunate in that regard. I don't think it's luck or anything. I think it's a product of the passion and attention to detail and level of execution that we bring to everything that we've done for almost 20 years now. So it's not a coincidence, but certainly feel fortunate to be in that position. And every day we wake up, and really probably one of my primary challenges is how do we get organized, get everything moving in the same direction? How can we be the most efficient to be able to harness and take advantage of all these opportunities that have come our way?
Yeah. So what is a normal week look? Actually, I guess as I said the words normal week, I realize you probably don't have very many normal weeks.
We don't. Yeah, we don't do that.
But what does a like in all that and how things are constantly changing? What does a normal week look like for you?
Well, like you said, there really isn't a normal week, especially with Wes. I mean, Wes probably. I'd say that outside his family, his wife and kids, I probably know Wes as well as anyone. And you're probably right there in that same category with your coaching and close relationship with him. But with Wes, there is no normal week. And if you're having a normal week, he's probably pissed off about it. he's not really thrilled if we're having a normal week. He kind of thrives on chaos, and he thrives on throwing new things out there and seeing what sticks. And that's really been kind of my challenge. And then our team's challenge is to, as I just said earlier, a lot of that opportunity is generated from the passion and the charisma and the salesmanship that Wes has. And then it's our job to kind of take that and run with it. So, there aren't a lot of normal weeks. There's a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of traveling. Our team is in going various directions every week. We've got myself. I may travel as little as anyone because I kind of joke that if I leave the command center, stuff really kind of starts to fall apart. So I try to actually stay connected and stay available to tackle things and to keep the ball rolling as much as possible. But we'll have Brett Underwood, our VP of sales. He'll be out at almost every NHRA event. Wes does a considerable amount of traveling. JT, of course, goes with us to a lot of these events. We've got Josh Dixon on the Racers Club traveling to events. And then, just Nate is another one. He's at PDRA Norwalk as we speak right now, and goes to every PDRA event and a lot of independent events as well. So there's a ton of flexibility, a lot of independent scheduling, I guess you could say. To succeed at Drag Illustrated, you have to kind of treat it like you own it, and you have to be self-disciplined. You have to be able to make your own schedule, to stick to it, and to get the project or whatever across the finish line without needing to be told every step of the way what to do, how to do it, when it's due. We kind of expect each person that joins this team to take their section of the business and run with it and hold up your end of the bargain to kind of make this deal whole. So that's been a bit of a challenge. You have to kind of have an entrepreneurial aspect to your thinking and to how you approach things. This is not a business where you're going to get up every day and report to duty and have a list of things you've got to do, or have a monotonous set of tasks that you're going to do every day. Every day is going to look completely different.
Yeah, yeah. What's maybe a funny story that you have about like how small the business is compared to the largeness or vastness of the things that you guys do? My version of that answer is just I was with JT actually on one of these shows. Was with JT, and a guest was planning something out for I think it was the World Series of Pro Mod. No, it was actually for PRI, and they were like, "Oh, like yeah, I need to get in contact with the person who does this." And JT was like, "Yeah, that's me." And then he's like, "Well, I also need to get in the contact with the person who does this." And JT was like, "Yeah, that's also me." And then like he's like, "Well, but also the guy who does this." And JT's like, "Yeah, that's me." Like, and I just thought it was funny because I could
Yeah,
see that
JT especially is kind of a glue guy, kind of a do-all type of guy, and he ends up finding himself in a lot of those positions. But we all do. I think you could have probably put any one of us in that same role, and we would have kind of answered that same way, because we do all wear a lot of hats, and um, perception, I think, is a lot different than reality. And we actually do work hard. This is another thing that Wes and I kind of have cooked up and continue to build this deal on, is that perception is reality. And it especially in this world of internet, of uh, connectivity, of influencers, the whole deal. You can create something that is big without having to have all the traditional infrastructure or resources, or uh, I don't really know what the word is, but in the decades past, you kind of had to have a huge business with a brick and mortar shop with tons of people, with all these individualized things. Now with really the internet and what that's allowed everyone to do, we can have a small, lean, efficient team that really all work from home. We have an office in Kirksville, Missouri, that JT and Caroline primarily work out of. Caroline is our office manager, who, if you're watching this, you probably have interacted with her at some point. She's been with us for a very long time, doing customer service, um, answering the phones, just really handling a bunch of the I guess the dirty work, the database entry, paperwork, all that stuff, sort of being our office manager. But the rest of us work from home and always have. Um, we uh, we like to say we worked from home before it was cool, before everyone did it when the pandemic started. We've been doing that really since the mid 2000s, when it was not as easy to do as it is now, with uh, internet connection speeds and better devices and better software tools and everything. We kind of had to figure it out, and we got really good at that. So when the pandemic hit, we were ready for it. But there's so many funny stories that relate to that. A lot of people do think, actually just had this conversation a week or two ago with a vendor that we use at World Series of Pro Mod, and we were talking about some stuff, just in kind of just shooting the breeze on business. And he made a comment that, man, it's just it's difficult out there sometimes, or we're trying to figure things out, and we're just not as big of an operation as you guys, so it's a little bit more of a challenge for us. And I kind of stopped him right there, and I said, hey man, I'm not counting your people or whatever that I've seen working for you, but I would say your deal may be bigger, or we're the same size. And he was kind of shocked at that, as far as the perception of what we've been able to accomplish with our staff, and just the perception that it's way bigger than it is. We've been honestly battling that for quite a long time. Whenever something maybe doesn't go exactly right, or it's something's not perfect, or doesn't go off like the huge deal that we normally do, people are like, you guys, you have this big staff, this big operation, this big team. I don't understand why it didn't happen. And then we kind of sit back and laugh and say, we were a victim of our own efficiency, or whatever you want to say. We made it look too easy. So we do sometimes fall victim to maybe not showing enough of the process, or showing how big how small our team actually is, or showing the struggle, and kind of just producing an end product that is impressive or that everyone enjoys, but we don't really show what it took to get there. and being a little bit a victim of making it look too easy. But we all just work extremely hard and are all very passionate about what we're doing here and enjoy working together. Our team is very cohesive, and when we get together at PRI or at World Series of Pro Mod, it's a reminder of how much we all enjoy being around each other, how much we enjoy working together, and how no one member of our team wants to let anyone else down. There's the old saying, you're only as strong as the weakest link. Everyone on our team works very hard to not be that weakest link. And I think that it shows. And when we get together, especially at those races, you've been there, you've been a part of that deal. And we've done all the work leading up to the event for months or years, it feels like. Then we get to the event and everyone's got to go from, marketer, graphic designer, salesperson, whatever the case may be, to banner hanger, truck driver, hauler, announcer, rule maker. It's crazy what our team is able to do and sort of just adapt to every situation.
Yeah. And one of the things, just picking out one of the things that you said there, you talked about the creative process and that you guys create things that people want. Can you tell people a little bit about the Drag Illustrated? I don't really want to talk about the evolution because I do want to go back and talk the history of it. But nowadays, what is the creative process of Drag Illustrated? How do you guys continually create things that people want?
I think it's about just looking outside the box. I think everything that we've done, we try to bring a new perspective to it and bring an influence from things that we've seen succeed in other parallel markets. We draw a lot from other successful magazines at the beginning, what they were doing that we felt like drag racing magazines weren't, or that drag racing lacked. And then same thing now, as we evolved into podcasts, live shows, we looked at things that had nothing to do with racing. I think that's probably one of the key things. And that's something that Wes and I sort of meshed on early on. Was when I came out of college, I had a graphic design degree. And when I was in college, there was, no one cared about drag racing. No one talked about drag racing. I did, and brought some drag racing sort of art to that table. But then when I got out of college, it really was sort of on my mind. And one of my first missions was, I'm going to take what I learned there that had nothing to do with drag racing, and I want to apply that to drag racing. And sort of parallel to that, I think Wes was doing the same thing. Wes, looks at popular culture, music, sports. He's clothing, fashion. He's an eccentric guy. I think we know this, and he brings a lot of outside perspectives and sort of is always looking, always taking notes, and always kind of coming to our meetings like, guys, I saw this, something that has nothing to do with racing. This is something that I think that drag racing is missing, something that we can bring to the table. And I've kind of done that same thing, but from a creative and art standpoint, and did that especially early on with the print magazine. Print design and print production was really what I focused on in my degree. And obviously when I met Wes and he was launching a print magazine, I was like, oh, this is right up my alley. So bringing a lot of taste and just design perspective from far outside of racing and bringing that to racing. I think initially people looked at the magazine and didn't really know why, or couldn't really put their finger on it, but just knew it was different. And Wes's writing initially, he took a lot of perspective and a lot of creative direction from other forms of writing that he had seen, and wrote stories about drag racing that were just way outside the norm and that no one had ever really seen, and just dove so hard into telling the story of the person, of the racer, of the struggle, the things outside of the numbers, the performance on the track. So much of drag racing focuses on horsepower, cubic inches, gear ratio, track prep records, the whole, all the nitty gritty. And you can get that so many other places and pretty much everywhere else. But when you first opened Drag Illustrated magazine and it had a person on the cover who was might be a famous racer, and you knew their car, but you didn't know what they even look like. And their car is nowhere to be found on the cover of the magazine, but we've got a professionally shot studio portrait of this racer. And we're taking him and really glorifying his story and what he sacrificed, good and bad, to get to where they are in drag racing, and relating that to the everyday person. I think that we've seen so much of that influence, really. I mean, if you look across other drag racing magazines now, if you look at other drag racing platforms, other sanctioning bodies and organizations, you see more of a focus on the man behind the machine. And obviously I'm not going to sit here and take full credit for that, but I think that our influence over the 20 years we've been doing this is certainly felt when you see faces on the cover of other magazines now, when you see successful TV shows like Street Outlaws and other things, and even our own World Series of Pro Mod, where we focus on the person, the racer, and telling that story and relating that to the fan, and even to other racers, versus, this is a 68 Camaro with a XYZ engine and transmission. That had just been done so much that we were looking to do something different. So that really was the genesis of Drag Illustrated, whether we knew that or not, and whether we actually said that out loud and set out to do it. I think Wes and I really connected over that same approach to the sport. And that was sort of the launching pad for Drag Illustrated, because we had seen, he grew up with his dad. His dad owns an auto repair and drag race in a class very similar to the class that my dad competed in. And so we had both kind of grown up seeing the struggle of business owners, the struggle of the self-employed, the struggle of your common man that wasn't rich, that didn't have major sponsorship, but made the smart moves, made the calculated decisions to get to a fairly high level of drag racing. And that was definitely a story I always wanted to tell. And it just so happened that Wes wanted to tell that story as well. And with his sort of, like I said, passion, charisma, salesmanship, whatever you want to say, to kind of get that ball rolling, and then paired up with my same perspective, and then design skills, production skills, that was really an early jumping off point for Drag Illustrated.
Yeah. So what would you tell someone, like, I mean, I know both you and, well, obviously I know both you and Wes, and I know the fire that you guys have both in your belly for this stuff. I was going to ask you, like, how did you guys keep the motivation to do it different? But I know that the answer there is probably just fire in the belly. What, from a racing business standpoint, like, what's some advice or just like motivation that you would tell someone that, like, they have the motivation to do something a certain way, they don't see anyone else doing it, but they know that they probably need to do it that way? What sort of advice do you have for them?
For someone that is looking to work in this industry, you really have to, don't be afraid to show the unfinished product, or be imperfect, or make a mistake. I think especially in today's social media age, everything is so much more visible, and you are sort of, you see all the perfection, and everyone's highlight reel on social media is what I like to call it. No one's going to put their bad days or their worst photo or whatever the case may be, worst run. No one's going to post that, but they're going to post their world record time slip, or they're going to post the best photo of their car or of themselves. And we're sort of just so used to that now, and influenced by that we're afraid to show that imperfection. I think show the process. We continue to remind ourselves of that. I just spoke of that earlier, that sometimes we're victims of not showing that enough and making it more real for our audience, of the struggles that we go through and what it takes to get where we are. So I would say just start, just make that first step and just start. And if you have enough passion and believe enough in what you're doing, drag racing is a sport that will welcome you with open arms. This is like a brother in arms. This is a group of people that also will identify with the struggles or the good and bad of your, climb up the ranks of the sport and embrace it. You're gonna, it's. I think it's viewed as a little bit of everyone out there is a hard ass and is kind of a know-it-all and can't be. I know more than you and I'm better than you and I can do this better than you. And I think that's the competitive aspect of it. But at the end of the day, there's no. If you need something, if someone's broken down on the side of the road and you get on Facebook and a group of drag racers hear about a fellow racer broken down the side of the road, man, that's like the best AAA service you could ask for. It's there. You'll have a fleet of mechanically inclined people there to help you get back on the road in no time. And you've just got this ultimate network around you that you may not even realize. So I think don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to do something that's a little bit different. Drag racing is all about innovation and about, trying to find a better way to do something. That's what we did here on the media end. That's something that Wes and I think we both had aspirations to actually race ourselves. But then about the time that we started this deal, when Wes and I met in 2007, I had actually just gotten my license. And we were sort of, I guess the hope or the dream was for the next few years for me to race alongside my dad. But I think Wes had similar aspirations. But when we met in 2007, it was kind of a turning point where he and I both sort of put that to the side and decided to take that passion and everything that we loved about drag racing and apply it to the media side. So we ended up sort of shelving the driving and racing aspirations. And there's some days when I wish that I had, continued to pursue that path and maybe had tried to build a career in drag racing. But at the same time, I know how hard and how few and far between those successful drag racing careers are. So I'm glad that we were able to do something in the media. And I feel like we've had a far bigger influence and impact on this sport that we love from the media perspective than we ever could have as a racer. So it's been quite a journey. But yeah, that'd be my advice to someone that is looking to get started in this industry.
Yeah. So what do you tell someone who is like borderline on racing dreams? Like they've actually figured out another way in the racing industry that they could probably stay around, but they're still borderline on their racing dreams. Like, what do you tell them?
That's a tough question. I think it really depends on it depends on where you are in life. It depends on what you want out of life. And I guess it depends probably on your financial situation in a lot of ways, but do you want to make a career out of racing? I think working in drag racing it's an interesting challenge in itself. And I think a lot of people have a dream of just wanting to be involved in drag racing and be involved in the sport. And there are so many ways to do that. And I think you see people that do both. I think you see people that are involved in drag racing manufacturers or drag racing businesses and then also race themselves. And you see people that are only involved, have never raced and are only involved in the business or in the industry through the business they work for. I think you kind of just have to choose your path and continue on and stick with it. I think that that's another thing that I think sort of sets what we've done apart is that here we are. I mean, it doesn't seem like it, but we're 20 years in. I mean, in probably a year or two, we're going to be celebrating our 20th anniversary of Drag Illustrated. And a lot of drag racing publications, even the ones from the heyday of print, didn't last that long and didn't put out the number of issues we've put out. We're at 189 issues of Drag Illustrated at this point. So just standing the test of time and having perseverance to weather the good days and the bad days, I think that is as key as anything. And don't get frustrated. We're in such a instant gratification culture. I think it's one one bad year, one bad day, one bad whatever, or you may see another opportunity that the grass is greener somewhere else, either within racing or outside of racing. And I would say that if you love this enough and you're passionate enough about it and believe in what you're doing, to just continue on, stick with it, put one foot in front of the other, and keep going. Because we've had many of those days, those years. We've weathered it. Just every year, it kind of seems like there's something. There used to be, oh, it's the election, it's politics, it's the housing crisis, it's the election again every 4 years. It's the election. It's, oh no, we got to wait and see what this election is going to do before we can spend money or sponsor you or whatever the case may be. And then of course there was COVID. I mean, a lot of businesses were pushed to the brink during COVID, including Drag Illustrated, but came out of it stronger. And I think that is certainly the case with Drag Illustrated as well. So there's been every reason to just kind of go, what are we doing here? And to quit and look at other avenues. Maybe we could make more money. Maybe we could have been more successful, had less stress, doing something else or pursuing just, your standard career path. But it just takes, you have to have that motivation and that passion to just keep moving forward, even when everything is telling you not to. So that would just really be my advice to someone that's starting out, is to don't be afraid to make mistakes and to just keep pushing forward. Because if you get enough experience, get it established enough, get enough of a track record of providing a great service or producing a great product or being a great driver or a great tuner or manufacturing a great product or whatever the case may be, then that's going to take hold. And word of mouth is the biggest driver of success in this industry. It is such a niche, such a small community. You can't afford to burn bridges. You can't afford to put out subpar work. You can't afford to have your name associated with poor work for too long, or it's honestly, it spreads so quickly.
Yeah.
By that same method, good work, passion, everything on the good side of it spreads just as quickly, and you will quickly make a name in the industry just simply on word of mouth if you stick with it long enough and produce enough of that good work or good product or cut enough good lights, whatever the case is. So I would just say that don't let early success go to your head, and don't let early failure knock you out of the game.
Yeah. Drag Illustrated, sometimes when I mean, you talk about 20 years, I had to look down at the date and realize, sorry about the curse, but yeah, it is like 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're still young and handsome, but we are 20 years into this, right? But we started young. I mean, that was a challenge in itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for the people that watch the show, like, they probably know this, but some people don't know. Like, part of Drag Illustrated's origin is my failed attempt to hire Wes as the drag manager at Gateway. And it's like, wow, that was 20 years ago. And it's like, shoot. So that means I was only 2 when that happened. No,
all right.
Having seen Drag Illustrated the whole time, like, it seems like there's been a whole bunch of lightning in the bottle moments around people and people finding their role and like just doing their role. And I know that's something that I've, just talking about struggle or whatever, like I've struggled with it, and I've struggled with it, and it doesn't hurt that, like, it doesn't help that a lot of people are like, oh, well, you coach this guy and you coach this guy and you coach this guy. Like, why do you just coach when, like, if you coach them, how come you just don't do what they do? And it's like, well, because I can't. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't do what Wes does. I can't do it literally. Like, most of my clients are just these magical people. Like, I can't do what they do.
Well, that's actually a great point, and something that I was thinking about before we jumped on here that is another key is don't be afraid to get in where you fit in and be a complementary piece when it comes to forming a team. I think everything you just said, your success comes from realizing that you're not that person that you're coaching. However, you're able to provide a perspective or information or knowledge to that person that they weren't going to get elsewhere, or in a way that they weren't going to get elsewhere. So you may not have whatever it is that they're doing, but you provide a service and have other skills and knowledge that they don't have. And so it takes them realizing that they don't have that and coming to you for coaching, just as much as it takes you realizing that you're better served providing that information as a coach. So when it comes to our team, that is like the story of our group. And it really starts with Wes and I. Wes is, he's the face. He's the spokesman for it. A lot of people say he's the spokesman for drag racing. He's drag racing's evangelist. And there's probably nobody better at jumping on a mic and talking about drag racing. And his passion and enthusiasm and creativity and everything it shows in that. However, Wes knows that when it comes to execution, production, organization, efficiency, all the other stuff that's maybe not as fun, the behind the scenes stuff, that he honestly, I think if he wanted to or devoted his enough energy to it, I think he could do that. But his energy is better served being out front, being the voice, being the face. And that's where I come in. I'm better at those other things. I'm better at taking the idea or sort of the seed that's planted, and then figuring out, how do we actually make this into something, and how do we get this done? What's it going to take? And sort of just taking what's more of an abstract idea that's just spit out into the atmosphere and could never go anywhere or become anything. And how do we make that into an actual tangible thing? What steps? You got to break it all the way down to step one. What steps do we have to take to get to that final product? I think that Wes is great at just envisioning a final product that is something awesome, but it doesn't just appear, and you've got to just be able to break that down, put a team in place, get organized, have the tools, the resources to start to make that happen. And it's taken Wes realizing what he is great at and then also myself realizing that. A lot of people say, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why are you and Wes, why do you guys kind of work together like this? And I think that 20 years of doing this has proven that if you're able to put your ego aside, at least part of it, and say that, I'm good at a lot of things, but I'm not this, but let me surround myself with someone that is. I think it's a powerful thing. It's a yin and yang puzzle piece type of fit, where if you get a bunch of alphas, or you get a bunch of people, that all have the same idea, or they're all the same thinking, you're going to have infighting. You're going to have conflict. You're really not going to get anywhere, because, too many chiefs, not enough Indians, too many cooks in the kitchen. I mean, we use these sayings a lot because this is a big part of our success as a team, is reinforcing that, hey, don't, it's okay if you're not the front person, or if you're not the person that gets all the credit. That's another thing that we've had to learn and sort of deal with here, is that when everyone thinks of Drag Illustrated because of Wes, and I mean, Wes obviously owns the company and is the founder and the face of it, but a lot of people think it's just Wes. I need to call Wes. I need to talk to Wes. I need to, for everything. Now, there are some things that you do need to talk to Wes about, and he's happy to jump in on that. But if you're wanting to talk about finances, that's Nancy. If you're wanting to talk about sales, that's Brett. If you're wanting to talk about production or a lot of various other things, that's me. If you want to talk about Racers Club, that's Josh. If you want to, there's so many different aspects to it. And Wes he's learned over time that to just completely let those get out of the way and let those people do what they're best at doing. And that's been a big driver of success here, is really him sort of figuring out that he doesn't have to get involved in everything. And we've built a strong enough team that he has confidence in everyone to do the things that they are best at. And so that's been a big driver of growth for our team, is for him to sort of say, this is what I'm going to spend my time and effort doing. And then probably it comes to me, Mike, you figure out the best team, the best organization to then start to put, actual tangible products or ideas behind this big vision that he has. So that's been a big thing.
It's probably at the point where he doesn't even have to say that anymore. Like as soon as he's like mid vision, you're already planning out
pretty much. And it's a lot of we joke a lot. I think we're in meetings, especially like face-to-face meetings, when Wes is talking about kind of his next big idea, the people will look over at me and I probably have this somewhat pained look on my face or something, because I'm starting to think about, is this doable? Is this feasible? Is this going to work? If it is the juice worth the squeeze? How are we going to put this together? Is it worth it as far as what it's going to take away from other projects that we're working on? And I'm already sort of starting to think about these things. And so everyone sort of laughs. They'll look, Wes is over there getting everyone fired up and excited. And they'll look at me and I'm like zoned out or something, because I'm starting to think about what do we do when we leave this meeting for this to actually start happening. And that's been sort of a role that I've learned as well, as this deal has grown, because it really started with just Wes writing most of the stories and then me putting the magazine together and then doing the design and the production. And then as it grew to a website and doing these shows, podcasts, this is like a learned skill as well. Just being on camera, being on the microphone. And again, when we do the Wes Buck Show, a lot of people joke and they say, man, it's Wes he's all over the place on that show and he dominates that show. Well, it's called the Wes Buck Show for a reason. But then if it was just a Wes on there, I don't think it has the same power as when myself, JT, and then our guests jump on there and we're able to bounce off of one another, riff, provide different perspectives and ideas. And that show really is a great example of our team in our known roles within the organization and how we best fit. And we're kind of putting that on display on that show. And it's ever since we've done it in the format that we've done it, I think it's been 3 or 4 years now, where it's kind of gone from really just Wes and then with maybe JT occasionally to the three of us basically full time with guests. It's really taken off, and it's wild. We did the magazine for 15 years, and we would get letters or emails or the occasional phone call or text about how much someone was enjoying a story in the magazine or enjoyed the magazine as a whole. But we get 10 times or 100 times the feedback on our show that we do on the actual magazine. And I think it's just the interactivity of it. The fact that we're putting ourselves out there, we're talking about subjects as they happen, or, instead of telling what we call the evergreen timeless story of a racer or of a situation in drag racing, we're sort of, on the breaking, not really breaking news, but on the cutting edge, or talking about something that's happening right there that people are excited to hear our opinions on and to sort of give their voice as well. And it's funny. We're recognized when we go to races. People really kind of know us only for the show and for the podcast. It's almost like we have a whole different audience that watches that versus the print magazine. And we've sort of talked about that as time has gone on, that our audience has grown, but it's also sort of segmented, where we have a segment of the audience that reads the print magazine and doesn't go online, or we have a segment of the audience that follows us on Facebook or Instagram, but doesn't subscribe to the magazine, or we have a segment that watches our show every week, but doesn't follow us on, YouTube or whatever the case is. So everyone kind of gets their different opinion or different version of what we're doing, but that's what you have to do in today's time as a media outlet, as a publication, because everyone's getting their information a different way or wants a different side of it. And as I said, to start this, I feel like we've done as good of a job at diversifying and providing drag racing coverage in a variety of different platforms. So no matter how you want to receive it, we've got something for you.
Yeah. Well, I want to drill a little bit more in on the Wes Buck show when you talk about like the, the actual production or the visual or the production of the show being a culmination of like the teamwork. But I think something too that I just want to point out and have you speak to is um like, but then then the show is recorded, but then there's the other aspect of Drag Illustrated where Blake, Kayla, all the other people, how the show ends up getting marketed, and then afterwards that it's not just the show itself, but then that's when the other side of Drag Illustrated kicks in. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, we've got, like we said, we've got a lot of different voices that we're trying to grow here. You being one of those, Kayla. Soon we've got a new project in the works for her. She's become an established voice in the industry just in the short time that she's been doing stuff for us. And then, and I think what you're referring to is the fact that we take the show and clip it up and make it into reels and make it accessible in a lot of different bite-sized ways. That's another thing that's super important in today's times. We have an audience that sits and watches the show, the full 2-hour show every week, and wants to comment on it and sort of watch it live. And then we have our largest audience that only wants it in 2-minute, 3-minute chunks or 30-second chunks, or wants it vertical format on a reel that they can scroll through with the captions and the quick cuts and stuff. And that's where Blake comes in and does all of his editing. Blake is a magician with that stuff, with timing cuts and timing things to music, and taking something that, I mean, we don't even give him any direction, and he just takes the raw show and makes a dozen clips, a dozen reels from that every week, and they're always flawless. And then it goes to Kayla to organize that and schedule it on social media and make sure that it gets out there. But that's been a huge way that we've grown as well. And we've gotten, we've reached, some have gone viral, some have reached audiences that we never thought possible, reached people, real, I don't know what the word is, powerful people in media and in sports and in racing, got their first introduction to Drag Illustrator sort of latched onto us through those little short clips. So everything, it all works together. I really don't think you can have one without the other, especially as it relates to what we're doing. And that's hard to do. And social media is hard. It's relentless. It is exhausting, really. It's something that requires to be fed constantly. And for us, it takes a team to do that. And for an individual person to do that, or someone that's trying to grow their audience or sort of become known that way, that is a tough deal. And it's gotten tougher as time has gone on and algorithms have changed, and they've really just made that whole realm has just gotten saturated, and they've made it increasingly difficult to stand out and to sort of get traction and start to build your audience that way. And we were fortunate to start early on. We sort of parlayed one audience to another. We started with the print audience, then that went to and actually we did a radio show. This is before, I mean, it's like almost predates the internet, it seems like, but called Blog Talk Radio, where it was all done over phone calls. And it was a platform that, it was really the first Wes Buck show, or the first podcast we did. And you did it all over the phone. So it was pretty archaic. I'm dating myself with that, but that evolved into, the website, to social media. We were able to build an audience on social media early on, sort of before I don't know what you would say, turn the faucet off with being able to dramatically grow an audience on Facebook or Instagram. And, we've grown, I don't know what the numbers are on our various platforms, but it's probably 1 million plus at this point. And we're able to kind of get in there before it became so saturated and establish ourselves as a voice and as a go-to outlet. And that has continued with now Kayla. I mean, that's her main role, is maintaining the social media every day, generating the graphics cards. When news does break, we try to get out there. We don't Competition Plus, NHRA.com themselves. I mean, there's a lot of other outlets that probably see themselves more of a breaking news outlet, but when something really big happens, we try to jump out front with it and sort of throw our hat in the ring as a breaking news outlet. But we're more there to tell the stories, to dig in, to investigate, to provide a different perspective, and we do that in a lot of different ways on social media. But that has allowed us to continue to grow the audience over time, so that we're not sort of doing the same thing that a lot of other outlets are doing. We're providing a different perspective. We're also not afraid to jump into controversy or to say, what may not be PC. We just did our show this past week, the Wes Buck Show, on gambling in sports and in drag racing. That's something that's coming with NHRA drag racing. They've signed a deal to formally introduce gambling to NHRA drag racing. It's going to have a lot of implications, positive and negative, and we're not afraid to talk about the negative implications. And that, I think, is something that people look to us for, and we'll always continue to provide. It's sometimes it gets us, every door is not open, and we're not welcome in some circles. And sometimes we make our lives harder on ourselves by doing that. But I feel like that it kind of goes back to the original idea of Drag Illustrated, that it's going to be sometimes gritty. Sometimes it's going to be dirty. It's going to be raw. Sometimes it might not be family friendly, but it's going to be real, and it's going to be real, real people talking to real people. No BS, no sugarcoating, no corporate control. That's another thing that we've really made sure that when we do have sponsors and we do have advertisers, they're on board with that idea. They're not on board with trying to control the narrative or stifle what we're doing. They're on board to continue to push what we're doing, and that's been an important part for us when we partner with companies. So that's what we'll always continue to do. And I think that as we continue to grow, especially in the events, that's something that we've, going back to our audience, that we have a whole different audience that watches the World Series of Pro Mod or comes to those events that may not watch our podcast or may not subscribe to the magazine, but sees what we do there and kind of gets a feel for, okay, this is Drag Illustrated. We want everything we do to say someone to clearly know, okay, this is a Drag Illustrated deal. Like, because if it wasn't, it wouldn't be done this way, or only these guys would do something like this. That's sort of at the heart of everything we do, is to make sure that we're standing out by doing that, but also we're providing something. We want it done the way we would do it if we were a fan, or we were a reader, or we were in a different position within the sport. This is what we would want. This is how we would want it done. And if we ever get away from that, I think that would be sort of the end of Drag Illustrated. So you can bet that as long as we're here, as long as this team is together and this group is together, you're going to always be able to quickly identify a Drag Illustrated production.
Gotcha. I don't have any more questions. I think you just summed it up there. So I'll leave it up to you. Any last things to say?
No, like I said, we're excited about the future. We've got a lot of stuff in the pipeline, a lot of stuff cooking. This is really 22, 23, and 24 have been huge growth years for us, and we're hoping to take that growth and capitalize on it. We've got we've got some exciting things coming that I think can continue to revolutionize what we're doing, help sort of bring more evolution to the sport. I don't think we're trying to revolutionize it, but continue to help it evolve, and just really continue to grow drag racing. I think that that's a thing that Wes talks about a lot, is that everything we do is rooted in growing the sport, getting it to a larger audience, making it more mainstream, making it cool, making it when you step out your door and you tell someone that you work in drag racing, that they know what that is, or that what that means. And it's not just, oh, is that those long skinny cars that have the parachutes and they go straight? I mean, that I've heard that my whole life, that, you know, especially here in the Charlotte area, for forever, this is NASCAR country. And if you say you work in racing, oh, what team do you work for? Or
Right.
what, or you work, which there's, you know, there's a handful of teams that kind of dominate everything. Or what do you do over at Hendrick or whatever the case is? And it's like, no, drag racing. And oh, that's cool. My grandpa used to race a 68 Camaro over at the drag strip. Or is that those long skinny cars with the flames that shoot out and they go, two cars go straight side by side? So we're trying to get past that, that sort of narrow view of the sport. And I think there's been a lot of things that have done that and helped make it more mainstream. But we would love to see drag racing, you know, be on TV the way these other sports are, to have the kind of income from those TV packages that these other sports have, to be able to actually pay the purses, or to promote and to staff the organizations, or pay the racers, pay the teams, to grow this deal to where it competes with maybe not even the only other forms of motorsports, but the other sports as well. So there are a lot of things that have done that over the last few years. And I think that there is a large contingent of people in the sport that want to see that and are working in that same direction. We're all just going about it a little bit, you know, everyone's got their different path. So that really is at the heart of what we do, is continuing to grow the sport. So we'll continue to do that. And we'll do it with shows like this. We'll do it with the Wes Buck Show. We'll do it with events. We'll do it with the print magazine, and whatever else comes next.
Whatever else comes next. Love it. Well, thank you in advance for all the stuff that comes next. Thank you for all the things that you've done over the 20 years to get us here. And I guess even before the 20 years, thank you for all the things you did growing up in order to get yourself prepared for this.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And thank you for letting this thing happen and doing all the backbone stuff for this show to happen. And I guess along with the thanks, want to thank you guys for being here another week for Drag Illustrated's The Racing Business. Remember, the purpose of the show is not just to entertain, but definitely to inform, to educate, to inspire, to motivate, so that we build some great businesses in this industry and keep it going. So we'll see you here next week for another episode of Drag Illustrated's The Racing Business. We'll see you later.